What is the future of SEO? Hello and welcome to the April 2025 edition of the Majestic SEO panel, where we're going to be debating the future of SEO. I'm your host, David Bain. Joining me today are three great guests, so let's get on with meeting them right now, starting off with Irina.
Hey everyone, I'm Irina Papuc, co-founder of the award-winning agency Galactic Fed, and you can find me on LinkedIn, and you can also reach me on galacticfed.com.
Superb stuff. Great to have you on here, Irina, and also with us today is Tom.
Hey, great to meet you. My name is Tom Winter. I'm the founder at SEOwin.io, which is an AI writing tool that is research first. You can also find me on LinkedIn. It's basically my second home.
Second home, okay. And also with us today is Laura.
Hiya, my name is Laura Iancu. I'm the founder of Searchpedia. It's your online glossary for all things search engine marketing. You can find me on Blue Sky and on LinkedIn.
Superb. Thank you for joining as well, Laura. So three great panelists there as well. And let's ask them all the same initial question. So starting off with Irina, first of all. Irina, what is the future of SEO?
I think the future of SEO is kind of like the beginning of SEO. There's going to be one clear overarching principle that never goes away, which is maintaining the authenticity of your brand's voice. And regardless of what tech comes in, that's always going to be the North Star that should be guiding any type of content creation, which remains the backbone of what we do.
Superb. Tom, what are your thoughts on this one?
So probably SEO will be dead in 2025 as every single year. But jokes aside, definitely we're going more into conversational SEO. So keyword stuffing is something that we will not continue. And we'll go back to the principles. So value first. So something that Google said 25 years ago, we want to provide the best value to the end user. And we actually will have to do it because Google became like really a good referee. So I think we have to add as much value, as much opinions, and as much context to create EAT content.
Okay. Irina, we had an attempted joke there by Tom, and you said that you were going to share. No, I'm not going to put you on the spot there. Laura, let's ask you the same question, please. What is the future of SEO?
Well, I'm going to probably bore you by saying it's all about collaborating with between SEO and LLMs. I think if, I don't know, maybe a year ago, we were quite sort of scared, I suppose, of like taking charge and initiative of start optimizing for what people call nowadays GEO. I think that's going to be a thing nowadays. And I think we're going to get to that point where we're going to build enough confidence to start doing our own tests, especially that because there's so many resources out there right now that help us do it very efficiently. And I think in the next couple of months, I think we're going to be a bit more proficient into actually measuring our impact. So yeah, something to do with that really. And I think it comes down to what both Irina and Tom were talking about, value and authenticity. So I think that's probably the main two pillars that are going to drive our strategy forward.
Okay, value and authenticity. We talked a lot about AI beforehand as well. Now, is value and authenticity more important in the age of AI, Laura?
Absolutely. Like we all know that large language models nowadays, they crawl like there's no tomorrow, right? They don't have the search crawling capabilities like a search engine, but because they're relentless, really. Like there's for a lack of a better word. I think it's so important that we as website owners or content creators or SEO specialists and so on take charge of what we actually show them. And there's so many ways to sort of start testing that. Like I think last week or 2 weeks ago, I can't remember. My time's a bit like metal right now because I've had a lot of like things happening at the same time. But I remember logging in for this amazing, I want to say a panel, like a panel on YouTube for an SEO charity. Like it was like SEO for Pools or something like this. where we had someone who's been in the industry for a very long time. I think his name was Alan Blaywise. I don't want to say the wrong name, but I know he does like really like in-depth and almost like ruthless SEO audits. And he was, talking about the possibility of actually involving a new protocol similar to robust text and your XML sitemaps called LLMs text, where you'd be taking that kind of control, or at least trying to, because we all know it's the disallow is not necessarily working all the time. So yeah, he was sort of saying, you know what, it can't hurt adding that to your website and sort of start doing best practices between SEOs and LLMs really. So yeah, I genuinely feel like moving forward, you need to show expert opinions, authenticity, and again, provide value to what you feed into an LLM in order to sort of get anything back. Even brand mentions, like Irina said, I think it's vital we do it. We move forward very consciously rather than just stuffing your entire, content, or because realistically, you can spam the hell out of any kind of new protocol, if you're cheeky enough. But hopefully people won't do it, but we'll see, I guess, and sort of add anything in there. So yeah, I think moving forward, that's the two main pillars. And change my mind if you want to, but that's it for me.
So Laura, this LLM text, how far are we down the line with this? How likely is it to be supported by the majority of the LLMs, and is it likely to be really adhered to?
Oh, I'm in my discovery phase at the moment, but I think it is something that will probably become the standard. Perhaps not. I suppose if a website owner, finds value into adding it to their website, definitely, yeah, go on for it. But I wouldn't expect them to sort of, every large language model out there to be like, yeah, all right. I genuinely feel like except they see the value, right? I don't think they'll necessarily adhere to it. Again, coming back down to value. So I suppose is the way you frame it. Like, for instance, I mean, yeah, as content owners, and again, as website owners, we get a bit of a value from there, because at the end of the day, you kind of, tell LLMs, do you know what? This is a shortcut to crawling something that's less likely to cause you hallucinations or actual authentic content. And now coming to what Tom was saying about authenticity, whereas if they see the value of doing that rather than just crawling and crawling and crawling, for the sake of doing that and gathering all the information and getting very deep, I suppose they'll get to that point where they can see it as a shortcut, therefore a benefit. But I suppose we just have to see. We're kind of beginning right now, so at least I think so. Like, I'm no expert, so.
Irina, are LLMs likely to replace traditional search engines?
I don't think they're going to be replacing traditional search engines in the near future, but I certainly think that's a very likely outcome in the medium to long-term future. I think in the short-term future, we've clearly seen mass adoption of LLM-based search. My grandma's using LLM-based search, which to me is the defining test that I take to see how far this has spread. I know it's not real science, but I do see another thing going on here. I was reading recent, I forget where it was, and I should have had this ready to cite, but there was a really telling poll I read recently. It might have been Pew, but maybe not. But it was predicting that in the next 2 years, LLM-based search will make a significant land grab of most search traffic. And that means we have to begin preparing ourselves as SEOs for a whole different paradigm. This is not just like rethinking traditional SEO. This is literally a paradigm shift as we move towards far more contextual, semantic, conversational style query building. Things like long tail keywords are going to be increasingly important. in a way that they probably weren't before. And just to piggyback on a few really excellent points that Laura made, this LLM.text proposal that came out back in September, this is very powerful because it helps level the playing field of the internet and how websites choose to receive and allow their content to be parsed by LLMs. So I think it's only natural that eventually regulation will creep in, like it does with any new technology. And when that happens, I'm excited to see how this text paradigm is going to impact things. I wanted to quickly go back to the LLM text file because I just find that to be such a fascinating topic. One thing that I wanted to point out is there are going to be certainly caveats in the way it's implemented. That brings up a lot of questions. For example, the fact that manual input is required. It's not quite the same as a robot text file, because unlike search engines that crawl the web, current LLMs do not just automatically find and index these files. So you, as the site owner, you're going to have to manually provide the file content to the AI system. And also, the way you created, making it highly readable to LLMs is going to be a big deal. The content written inside this file, it needs to be concise, clear, organized, easy for it to be understood by LLMs. So I'm a little worried, like with anything that requires manual human intervention, there is going to be some it's going to be prone to human error. So I hope that we're able to adopt this in a responsible way, and I guess take back our power as content creators and how we choose to allow that content to be used, which I think is an important and worthwhile question.
So Irina, I think it's worthwhile focusing on a few things that SEOs need to stop doing in terms of optimizing for traditional search engines that won't work so effectively for LLMs. One of the things you said earlier on was that LLMs are likely to prefer longer tail keyword phrases, and you also talked about the content, the structure of your content as well. So are you saying that SEOs probably need to stop targeting short tail keyword phrases and stop writing long form pieces without any structure in them?
In a nutshell, I think so. Don't hold me to it because these are still very much educated guesses, but I do see things moving in that direction. Simply because LLMs have become so powerful in picking up and quickly synthesizing content. So I think over time, I guess you can say the standards, the bar will be raised. And this is where bringing up EAT makes a lot of sense. Because as we all know, EAT has been a gold standard for years now in driving how we build authoritative, trustworthy pieces and how we advise our clients to do so. So I think that is going to become more powerful than ever before, even more crucial. Creating content that is not just a rehash of something that's already out there, but truly unique, truly built upon original sources that only you perhaps have access to, either from your own proprietary learnings or data, I think is going to be incredibly powerful and allow you to set yourself apart from the rest that's out there. And just to quickly recap on your question, David, other things that I think will differ when it comes to optimizing for LLM versus traditional SEO. I think there's a few key differences there. One, I think brand mentions are going to become incredibly powerful. Link building has always been a big deal since Google came around, and just by the way the internet is set up, right? Pages link to each other. So Google placed a lot of emphasis on links as a deciding factor of authority. But now that LLMs have come in and they're based around tokens and don't give a hoot about links, brand mentions are going to be more important than ever before. And by that, I mean the most relevant, most authoritative brand mention you can possibly get from a site that is clearly in your space, that is clearly a source of authority, that has really pawned EAT standards. If that site mentions your brand, that is a vote of confidence for your brand and gives you more powerful, I guess you could say, vote of confidence to an LLM as it picks up knowledge about your brand. I also think that maintaining active social media profiles is going to continue to be a very powerful strategy because LLMs train on diverse data sources, which include social platforms. And I also think generating organic brand mentions by becoming a mention magnet, let's say, is going to be a helpful strategy to think about. And just in general, moving away from the more traditional keyword-based search to more entity optimization, which I know is this really like esoteric meaning, and people always ask me, what the hell is an entity? But if we want to talk about that, I'm happy to philosophize, but thinking more broadly in terms of the entities that make up your unique brand and not just focusing on the trees in the forest, the keywords, I think is going to make a big impact in how you think about ranking.
Sounds great. Okay, I'd love to come back to entity optimization with regards to obviously the future of search and optimizing for LLMs as well. But Tom, just maintaining on keywords for a second there as well. What are your thoughts on how to go about selecting keywords that are appropriate to target LLMs?
So definitely, as I said in the beginning, like keywords will go away, but for the sake of understanding the entities, keywords are still useful to understand and map it out, just to know where's the starting point where we're trying to actually focus on. But I agree with both Laura and Irina that like entities are important. I would simplify it like it's kind of like being authority in a specific space. This is the entity. So like kind of be the small Wikipedia of your niche, like be able to provide as much knowledge within this space as possible to be able to become the authority. Because I agree with Irina that the brand mentions are the new backlinks. So it's easy to spot from the Google's perspective how many people actually put in your brand name into Google and drive the traffic directly to you. So this means that people know you. And that's a similar indicator as it used to be with the backlinks that people mentioned that, but we all know what we SEO experts do with backlinks and where we get them from. It's far harder to do it with brand mentions. Of course, there will be people that will try to do it, but definitely the authority, this is a very important indicator of the authority when it comes to the eyes of Google. But keywords are there. Keyword stuffing is definitely not, like, because Google understands the text far beyond that. So we are about understanding what we say, how we say, and solving the problems, because this is the key when it comes to both GEO and SEO. And coming back to your question about the different, like, are we going into GEO, so LLM search? I think it's really hard to draw a line right now between normal search and LLM search, because looking at, for example, informational keywords, basically we have AI overview that are in 90-something% of informational keywords when you put it into Google, both in Europe and United States. So that's an LLM search. So when it comes to this type of keywords, it's already there. Like, so, and if we go to Google Search Console, any Google Search Console, we will see the transition of the keywords to more conversational ones. There's a lot more longer conversational keywords in your Google Search Console.
Irina, you were wanting to talk about entity optimization for LLMs, and Mohammed asked a question actually in relation to what we do when we're cited, when our brand is cited, and there's almost no visibility, zero click and search or within the LLM. How do we go about measuring visibility and the impact that has if we don't actually see traffic back to our website?
Oh boy, I need to think about this for a second. If anyone else wants to jump in the meantime, feel free.
Laura, do you fancy?
Yeah, sure thing. So, yeah, indeed, LLM at the moment, the text is not a big deal because we're not, implementing it like crazy at the moment. And yes, there is a WordPress plugin for, I can't remember the name. I think it's actually WP. Can't even remember. I saw it briefly. I didn't look to see what it does. Instead, I remember reading an article on Search Engine Journal, I think, where they were suggesting a couple of tools that already do it for you, and sort of you have a bit more control than just generating with a plugin, with a WordPress plugin. But in terms of brand mentions with zero-click search, that's a bit of a complicated one, because you have to think about, are your already a settled brand? Are you someone who's got their brand awareness out there and people know about you? Or you've just launched your brand and you expect that you're going to be showing up in LLMs because you've done, I don't know, LLMs text? It's a bit of a weird one, I think. Like if you think about, a startup brand, right? That's a bit of a long process out there. It's not as simple as asking this question, I think. Whereas if you've got, I think if you're someone who's already got their brand recognition out there, and you got to that point, I think you've got a branding problem, not an SEO problem. So don't.
That's
I don't
a
know
fair
what
point. I appreciate that a lot, Laura. And I also, just to add to that, I think there is an aura effect we have to consider here, because like you said, once you reach a certain tipping point of brand recognition, SEO, you've built an SEO moat, you probably have a paid media strategy, like you have just all these different ingredients simmering in the same pot, then the additional brand mentions you get are going to be an extra layer on top of that. And I don't think that you should be looking so closely at those and measuring those separately, because all of these are ingredients contribute to the overall flavorness of the stew, if that makes sense. So I think in general, brand mentions are going to be very powerful, and at some point it has to be taken in fate that as you collect those, provided that they are from high authority, relevant websites to your brand, similar to how earning links is a faith-based science, because you cannot directly attribute SEO value to any particular effort you make within SEO, right? There's hundreds of factors that Google takes into consideration when they rank a page. You cannot just pinpoint and say, this is the reason why we are succeeding now. So I think that, again, it requires looking at the whole ensemble of what your strategy is like and all the moving parts that contribute to that overall success.
Earning links is a faith-based science. There's a t-shirt for you. That's a phrase.
Bumper sticker right there in the making. Right next to baby on board, right?
Tom, shall we continue the conversation about measurements? Obviously, Mohammed's question was about kind of measuring the value of entities within LLMs, but you talk a lot about EAT and creating content on your website based upon that and not keywords. So if we're not creating content based upon keyword volumes, how are you measuring the impact of what we're doing?
So definitely when it comes, like, you have to look at it from different levels. So definitely you can look at it from the content perspective, from the whole website perspective, and your own authority. So like these are at least the 3 levels that I would look at when it comes to EAT. I was on a conference just 2 weeks ago in Lithuania, and there was like EAT all over the place. They were talking about EAT this, EAT that. Unfortunately, I wasn't the nice guy there. So like I raised my hand and asked the question, like, but how do you measure that? Like that you're doing it right or wrong? Like, what do you do? And to be honest, nobody could answer the question because they were just doing EAT, not measuring it. So if you have 2 pieces of content, the problem was always which one is more EAT, like simple as that. So I try to measure it, like the simplest way to measure it, like just go to AI and ask it the question, like, tell me which one is more EAT, add a grade, maybe create even simple metrics, like what do you count, like what is the, I don't know, the value, 1 stands for this, 2 stands for that, and just ask even the AI. If you don't have a way to measure it, this is the simplest way probably to get any measurement, to be able to compare things together. Run it twice, see if it's predictable, if it's repeatable. If yes, this is one of the things that you definitely can do. But definitely we need to start measuring things like EAT because this is the value that we are providing. If we create fluff as content, if we have to understand that we do it, because many people think when I'm talking to them that their content is the best in the world and whatever like somebody else has is worse. Like, so actually find a way to compare in an objective way, not subjective, because always what I create is the best in the world. That's obvious. But try to measure things like that.
That is a great point, Tom. And I just wanted to quickly add to that. I think solid what you said about how we can measure EAT. Those are simple and very, very high impact ways to do it. I also think this we can go back to analyzing backlinks and mentions as another way to measure EAT success. If you're getting a bunch of authoritative mentions from other websites that are in your brand space, then that could also be an indicator that you're writing authoritative content that fit the EAT standards are working, right? I also think if your pages are being referenced in AI overviews, Google snippets, that's again a great indicator that you're being seen by LLMs and search engines as a source of authority. And then also user engagement metrics. I think longer dwell times, lower bounce rates probably signals that people are interested and view your site with a level of trustworthiness. So just wanted to add that as a few other ways we can look at and maybe measure EAT efficacy.
But I would say if you measure it like in different ways, you have to understand that some of them you can measure here and now. Some of them you have to wait until you get results, right? So like think about it from this perspective, and also just measure it. Like if you don't, then you will not see the results.
Totally.
That's an interesting point. Would you? I'm curious. Would you consider a review management system that a site owner implements, for example, whether it's Trustpilot or whatever? They use the new QR code that Google released now. You can just do it just by scanning the QR code after their update. Would you consider that as a KPI for measuring EAT? So whatever you're getting, as reviews, as part of the trust.
An indicator, but as we all know, like it's really easy to scam. Trustpilot, Google mentioned, like Google reviews and everything else. But definitely one of everything that shows trust, I think it's worth to work on.
Absolutely.
This is a trust signal.
Yeah.
Laura,
we all
what are
know
your
where
thoughts
we
on-
go to restaurants, right? Like if we see 4.8 and 1,000 reviews, like we go there. So I think it works just the same.
Okay, interesting. So obviously a related metric, but it's not necessarily tying directly back to the content on your site, but rather the authority of your brand. Laura, in terms of EEAT, are there any specific metrics that you look at in order to actually determine whether or not what you're doing has been successful?
Yeah, I still do it manually, funnily enough, because I feel like I get a lot of error by testing AI at the moment. Mind you, I don't have the experience that Tom and Irina have at this point, but I feel like it's best to stick what it actually says on the documentation on Google developers. Like I actually check their material quite often, especially after an update, to see if they've added anything on there, and it's worth sort of like sieving my content through the new guidelines, let's say. I never had the time to actually go through the entire 180 something pages of the I think they're called raters. So Google content raters or something like this, so which are actual people who have a list of like sort of checks to see if the content is up to standard. But I feel like that's a very good sort of document to refer to. And I also always ask myself I think it's at the bottom of the actual source, the whys and the what. When I think about my content, regardless if it's a product page or if it's an actual blog post, or regardless. And I feel like it's very important to not lose sight of what you actually want to achieve with that piece of content. And if possible, as Irina and Tom said, add authority signals, add author pages, make sure your structured data is on point. Like make sure you've got all that sorted before asking yourself, oh, why isn't my content performing as well. So in terms of measuring, as I said, EAT is a very long conversation, and it's something that's you're not adding it to your website. Like we saw this Reddit forum, like I think a couple of days back, where people were selling EEAT to the point that we were talking about this before, to the point that I think John Mueller was did like a release where he said that's not a thing.
It was a press conference.
Yeah, exactly. So no, you can't sell EAT. I mean, there's parts of it obviously where that they bring together to the point that you can actually prove that you've done the right thing. But yeah, when it comes to measuring, it's a bit elusive, isn't it? It's like it's Google at the end of the day. You know.
Irina, we said we'd go back to entity optimization, and that obviously relates to brand mentions as well, and perhaps measuring the value of brand mentions without actually resulting traffic back to your website. But in relation to entity optimization, what are a few key tasks that an SEO needs to do in order to actually ensure that their entity is as optimized as possible for an LLM?
That is a great question. So I think there is no one size fits all answer here. And that's why this often becomes a very esoteric topic. People often ask themselves, what is an entity? An entity can be anything, any way you want to slice up the pie that is your brand. That's the way I like to say it. And I must be hungry. I don't think I had breakfast today. This is why I have all these food references. But essentially, right, initially we were looking at, as SEOs, 10, 15 years ago, it was all about keywords, and keywords still matter a great deal. As Tom said, that's a way we can map out entities. But nowadays, it's really important to take, let's say, I'm just going to use an example here. Let's say you're trying to grow your plumbing empire, right? Let's say this is your brand. And within this plumbing empire, let's say you have departments focused on different areas of plumbing. Maybe you have a commercial and then a residential branch in your plumbing empire. So I'm just giving you some examples of how you might be able to slice up this pie. But that's going to depend entirely on the brand that you're building, and its unique journey and its unique connection and relationship to humankind, to how you want it to interact with the audience. But the idea here is that you look beyond just the keywords, and you look at these parts of your brand that you can then do specific strategies around to grow. At the end of the day, I don't think there's any big, innovative, new, radical thing that differentiates keyword optimization from entity optimization. I think it's more about how you decide to split up the thing that you're trying to optimize and look at it. I don't know if that was very helpful, but if anyone else wants to chime in.
I think it was like, and coming back to your plumbing example, I would say when it comes to entity, Google will not let you into the big pool straight away. It will first like let you into a small pond. So coming back to the plumbing thing, if you become and you want to build a plumbing empire, you start like from your neighborhood. So like you start with maybe a piece of the city, then you actually branch out to the whole city, then probably something else and the whole country, and then probably worldwide. If you start to go worldwide from the day one with all the possible things within plumbing, Google will not believe you that you actually could have done it. So start within your small niche, like something small that you do really perfectly. Become the expert, become the Wikipedia of this small niche, like small thing, fixing leak from the sink, like, and this is where you become expert, and then go into another thing, and then go wider, because Google will let you in piece by piece, like pond by pond, to a big pool or even a sea or an ocean. If you're Majestic, then probably you can be a marketing big ocean. But like if you're a small company in marketing, then probably start within your niche. And this is where Google and probably LLMs will let you in and tell like, yeah, this is the expert within this specific niche, within this area.
That is a great point, Tom.
Yeah.
Just really quick, just to add a few thoughts there. We were chatting just a minute ago about measuring EAT impact, and now we're talking about measuring entity optimization impact. And I think in both of these examples, just to tie it in with what Tom said, when you are an early stage company, right, and you're literally building the seeds of your plumbing empire, and you're trying to become the expert in this one faucet leak in your neighborhood, you might not have the traffic, the clout, all these things that we were chatting about earlier, the ability to ask ChatGPT and to verify that you're doing all the right stuff by showing yourself show up. You're just at the start of your growth journey. So you might not be able to track any backlinks to see if you're authoritative because you haven't built any yet. You literally are just starting out. So I wanted to quickly address that use case because there's more of those than there are not. And perhaps a lot of the audience here is wondering that. How do I track something if I'm at the very start of growing my company? And I think what always helps, whether it's EAT impact or entity optimization impact, is the old true and trusted way of rounding up a few of your clients or a few outsiders, people who live outside your head. Because as Tom said, we all believe we are creating the best content on earth. And having a few of your clients who you're closer to, or simply just outsiders, read your content and give you feedback on what they're reading. Survey the people who are connected to your space and ask them personally what they think of what you've created. Is it useful to them? Is it driving value? Is it answering their pain points? Is it solving their problems? Is it a delight to read? Are there enough jokes in it, humor? Like, is it something that they're actually going to want to consume? And I think that always works regardless of what stage you're at in your plumbing empire's growth. Just good old-fashioned surveying, right?
And if you don't have friends that you can ask, like just go to any AI and ask the same questions there. They can become your best friend and they will answer honestly what they think.
That's exactly what I was going to add. Sorry. So I remember one of the first projects I've ever done to sort of see how am I doing in my entity optimization, right? I was using Diffbot, like the beta free version a while ago. And I remember I kept looking at these like metrics that I didn't understand at that point because I'm not a network engineer. I don't know how these things work. I just read about them and I try to understand them my best and talk to people about it. Right. And there were salience, it was sentiment, there were these kind of metrics there, obviously, that the Diffbot were sort of getting from my text. And say this is between 0 to 1, this is between 1 to 2, and so on. And there was also an option where you could sort of just see how your crawler would have read your website pretty much and understand the context. Again, context, which I think is very important when we talk to LLMs as well, because that's kind of the key. To sort of like look at your website and be like, all right, cool. So I feel like this website is doing this because of this, and because of this entity, and this is their connection kind of thing. So I feel it's very important to sort of like play around a bit. I agree with what Irina said, talking to people if you've got friends, or although a lot of the time they're going to be biased if they know you. They're going to be like, yeah, it's amazing.
My friends, I didn't mean friends. I meant people you are friendly with.
Yeah, yes. They might be like, yeah, it's amazing. But it's very sort of easy to kind of just rely on any type of AI that's free or not out there if you can afford it, to sort of see how you're doing and verify your knowledge graph. If you're a business, if you're doing local SEO, for example, your plumbing business and so on, make sure your Google business profile is still optimized and absolutely fine. Like little things like that I think in terms they do count for LLM optimization as well, because as much as you're doing, standard and up to date and best practices for SEO, then you're on a winner to GEO. And again, I'm using this term GEO, but anyway, that's another conversation. I'm kind of used to it now. I wasn't friends with it.
So, Tom, you talked a little bit about targeting a very specific niche and becoming that authority, that expert in that particular niche. And I was going to ask a follow-up question in relation to actually, how do you rapidly make search engines and LLMs aware of the fact that your brand is the expert in that particular niche? And I was going to ask for one or two tips in terms of actually speeding up that process. What do you optimize on your site? Is schema part of it? Are there other elements that you'd like to suggest? Laura, you brought in Google Business Profile as well. Are there other elements of speeding up that recognition in terms of what your brand represents actually is and what you can do with search engines? Tom, you gave a little nod there, so I'm going to go to you first for that one.
Sure thing. So first of all, it doesn't always go the way we want. So this is the big problem. The authority where we are the authority doesn't have to align with what we think we are in an authority in. So first of all, I would start with Google Search Console to ask myself a question using the Google Search Console data. What is my authority? Because the authority is hidden there. Like these are the keywords that we rank for, especially if we can cluster them into some groups, then we will see exactly what Google at least thinks, and this is like 90% of organic traffic. So when it comes to compares to other types of traffic, let's focus on that because they give us the most of organic traffic. Then we can see what is our authority. Even if we think that we want to go broader, like let's start from that and let's think about like what kind of things we can branch out. Then creating content that is valuable, full of authority signals like value, opinions, data, putting things together. So it's kind of like skyscraper technique combined with your own knowledge. Like still, I would go about after search intent because changing the mind of Google is extremely hard. They have it defined for the specific keyword, but I would add on top of that. When it comes to some tricks that you can use and do it straight away, Laura already said about llms.txt. No harm in doing that. For me, I understand it as kind of like a schema for LLMs to better understand your page. When it comes to robots.txt file, this is a way how to crawl your page. So they're totally different. They're both needed, and we have to look at them from a different perspective. So when it comes to robots.txt, which you can add straight away, it just allow LLMs to crawl your page. So like just add a snippet there with information that you allow LLMs to crawl your page and get your data as the crawling data, as the training data. So this is the thing that you can do straight away. Put it there, no harm in that. You will become like a part of search because you will allow LLMs to use your data. For search, you will also add it to training data. Did they use your data before for training data? I don't know. Is there any harm for letting them? I don't think so. Like I would say at the moment it's better to allow them to use it as training data than not. But that's my opinion. You can do it however you want. But focus on the value and then use something that I call critique stage using LLMs to understand what you're doing good, what you're doing bad, and what are the action points to resolve it and make it better. You can use it with everything, either content that you're creating. So just like use it as an editor telling you, these are the things that are good, these are bad, these are action points to resolve it. Or other things, if you're doing a prompt, you can do a critique stage with the same way. Use LLMs to help you to understand and work with them as buddies, like teammates, that will help you to excel with whatever you're doing to create better value.
So
that would be it.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks to Bill and Max for liking the live discussion on Facebook, and also the interaction from Trans Canada, Mohammed and Jenny on YouTube. Let's finish up by asking our panelists one more question and just confirming who they are and where people can find them. So the last question is, what's one action SEOs need to take to prepare for the future of SEO? Irina, shall we start with you on that one?
Sure. Going back to entity-based SEO, I want to round it up with some things you can do already starting today. 1, use schema markup for all the key entities that make up your brand. So people, places, organizations, products, events, whatever they are. Make sure that those are properly marked up with schema on your site. Create very clear entity relationships within your content. So try to show how entities connect to each other to help guide that along. Also, make sure that your entities align with search intent and with user journeys. I can't emphasize that one enough. And finally, try to build authoritative associations through internal linking on your site between entities. I think all of these are just part of good like best practices, good hygiene in terms of thinking about entity-based search. And finally, try to develop content that positions your brand as an entity authority. This is, again, something that's been a true north since the dawn of the internet. But I need to end with emphasizing that.
Thank you, Irina. And where can people find you online?
They can find me on galacticfed.com. And they can also hit me up anytime they want with any 3 a.m. SEO question on LinkedIn.
Lovely, Irina. And Tom, what's one action SEOs need to take to prepare for the future of SEO?
So although that I'm a developer on a daily basis, I will say stop thinking about technical SEO, that it can solve every issue that you have and will bring you tremendous amounts of traffic. No, it will not. Like maybe it will give you additional like 5%. Focus on the value. So like basically focus on the thing that bring value, and that's data, original research, your own opinions, anything that can bring additional value to the table when somebody is reading. Because right now people are using Google and LLMs in the same way. They are using it in a conversational way. They want to have a solution. They want to see if something solved their problem, and they want to trust it. So they want to see that there is data to back it up. This is, if you focus on that, I think you're golden. You can find me on LinkedIn, as I said in the beginning, or SEOwin.io.
Super. Thank you, Tom. And Laura, what's your answer to that question? What's one action SEOs need to take to prepare for the future of SEO?
I think you need to start by being present everywhere, if possible, especially where Google gets their data from. Like, make sure you're on Reddit, make sure you're on Wiki, and so on. First of all. Second of all, I'm going to go back to LLM and everything we were talking about previously and say start playing with a couple of tools to start measuring the impact. There are a couple of free resources out there nowadays. There are also paid, more, I suppose, advanced models where you can actually measure your, you can track your brand mentions in LLM and so on, and the keywords you're targeting and so on. So have a play with that. And lastly, to tie it back to the LLM text, I think it'd be important to create markdowns of basically every page on your website that you think needs LLM attention. And because the advantage there is that it's a nice full content flattening, so chances are it's going to get seen and crawled. So why not? Like, it can't hurt, as I think Alan, what's his name, said. So yeah, just be open and test and try and trial and error, because at the end of the day, no one's perfect.
And where can people find you, Laura?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn. Again, you can text me anytime. I'm also a night bird, so yeah, the 3 o'clock SEO questions I'm there for. Blue Sky and searchpedia.co.uk.
Superb. I've been your host, David Bain, and you've been listening to the Majestic SEO panel. If you want to join us live next time, sign up at majestic.com/webinars. And of course, check out SEOin2025.com too. Until then, see you later.